Shabbat Shalom. So we are a couple of dozen here, spread out across the Mishkan, and it's very strange. It feels so strange. And I admit, it's a little bit of heartbreak for me. I like to read old temple bulletins. And it turns out that today is not the first time we are seated with empty chairs between us. I once read about the time of the polio epidemic. Some might remember stories that were told about that time. It hit Canada very hard, and in anticipation of the High Holy Day children's services, arrangements were made for the children's services to take place at Forest Hill Collegiate in the auditorium there. And Rabbi Eisendrath gave the instruction that the children would sit with open seats between them. Imagine the fear at that time. Now, as far as I know, yesterday's announcement to the congregation ushers in the first time in Holy Blossom Temple's 163-year history that we will be closing our doors for services. This decision weighs very heavily on me. I'm the kind of rabbi who would say, "Not on my watch. There must be another way. Let's find another way." And yet just before Shabbat yesterday, we announced that we will not be gathering for services or for classes or for programs or for school or for meetings in person. You may have heard me say over the years that Holy Blossom Temple is open 365 days a year. We're open for prayer. Like hospitals and fire stations, we are open for spiritual emergencies. We are a place that fights against the plagues of loneliness and isolation. We are in the business of coming together and building meaningful connections. And yet the inconceivable is becoming a reality. Like synagogues and houses of faith across the planet, we are making a priority the mitzvah uvachartem b'chayim lema'an tichyeh. Choose life so that you might live. And it seems the old adage is true that when a synagogue door closes, a window on a laptop somewhere opens. So this Shabbat marks another historic event in the life of our congregation, the First Synagogue of Toronto. We are live streaming our services for the first time this Shabbat. And I wonder how many are tuning in at home. Shabbat Shalom to all of you. We wish you were here in person, but I'm glad to know that you are there, safe and sound. I also want to thank our Executive Director, Dr. Ron Polster, who has shown extraordinary leadership this week. He is seeing both the big picture and all the fine details at the very same time. Our temple president, Avra Rosen, has been working with us in lockstep around the clock, in sacred partnership to make sure that we know which levers to pull when, and finding our way to meet the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of our congregants all at the same time, together with our guests and friends who also depend on us. Our team of rabbis and cantors and lay leaders and teachers are at this very moment, in their minds at least, and tomorrow on paper, crafting creative ways to offer online services, to offer online classes, to offer online ways of meaningful connection. We'll keep a healthy distance, but we will be in touch regularly. A new anxiety hits harder than an anxiety that we already know how to live with. Every individual, every family, every workplace, every system that holds our society together is now grappling with a new anxiety. And it is taking a toll on us. We are integrating new information and discerning fact from fiction and collecting a new vocabulary. Just a week ago, I wasn't aware of social distancing by 2 meters, and I never knew the difference between an outbreak and an endemic and a pandemic. And I never knew I never heard of flattening the curve, and I never heard the expression so many times said, out of an abundance of caution. It turns out that I didn't even know how to wash my own hands properly. But the human capacity to adjust, to pivot, and to shift is remarkable, seemingly endless, because implanted within each one of us is a God-given talent to adapt to just about anything, and swiftly. So let us pause for a moment to reflect on all the changes that we have already integrated into our lives this week alone. It's quite a wonder. And let us take a moment to praise all that we have done, to plan and to prepare, to take care and to reach out, and to ready our own little corners of the world for these challenging days. Job well done. And let's take another moment of gratitude for all the good people who are extending themselves in countless ways, sometimes even putting themselves in harm's way, in order to provide for the well-being of others. Extraordinary. We are constantly now going to be holding 2 mitzvot in tension. One might be visiting the sick on the one hand and protecting oneself on the other. It could mean comforting the mourner in one hand and flattening the curve in the other. It could be caring for the elderly by staying away from the elderly. It could be caring for the vulnerable by keeping a distance from the vulnerable. How do we convene a minyan for prayers when we are primarily praying for an end of this plague? It's a conundrum. How do we unplug and power down from electronic devices on Shabbat when it seems that will be our only way for a while to join in community on Shabbat for prayers, to make a virtual minyan? Another conundrum. We just sang the words, Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. The Torah is a tree of life to those who cling to it, to all who hold on tight, who hold fast to it. But not today, not this Shabbat. We fight the good impulse to reach out, to touch, to kiss and hug the Torah scroll. But just when we need it most, we can still cling to it and find words of comfort there, because we will find that we have been here before. And I don't know about you, but I always take an extra measure of comfort when I can talk to people who can say to me, who can look me in the eye and say, I've been here before. I know what to do. So while it's true much of this is uncharted waters and foreign territory, there is a lot that we know. Let me turn to our parsha for some examples. First of all, we're in the wilderness. And we have traveled in wildernesses before. Everything we've seen this week, the good, bad, and the ugly, it's all there in the midbar. Leadership and kvetching and fear of the unknown, lack of direction, sacred encounters, and yes, infectious disease as well. In last week's Torah reading for Shabbat Zachor, we learned, don't leave the vulnerable behind. Amalek was able to attack because we allowed for the hungry and the weak, the old and the young to fall to the back of the pack. As we wandered the wilderness, the sick were neglected, and so we all became susceptible. We were all threatened by that attack. In this week's Torah reading, We begin with a description of infection. When you undertake to tally the children of Israel for their enumeration, let each one of them give to God an atoning gift for their numbering, in order that there be no negef, no plague, in the taking of a census. It seems the counting is associated with plague. The very debate about losing 1% of our population, God forbid, to the COVID-19 virus is part of the danger. Reducing human beings to numbers we know all too well is a dangerous game. Our parsha also provides antidotes. We read, the Eternal One spoke to Moses saying, make a laver of copper and a stand of copper for it, for washing, and place it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and put water in it. And let Aaron and his sons wash their hands, and wash their feet in the water drawn from it. When they enter the tent of meeting, they shall wash with water, that they may not die. Or when they approach the altar to serve, to turn into smoke an offering by fire to the Eternal, they shall wash their hands, and they shall wash their feet, that they may not die. It shall be a law for all time, for them, for him, for his offspring, throughout the ages, lidorotam, forever. A ritual of washing to protect from death. Another antidote in this week's parsha is Moses self-isolates. He's on the mountaintop for 40 days and 40 nights. God willing, it won't be so long for us. But consider all that he discovered there. What wisdom, what insight, what spiritual uplift, what self-discovery might we also discover during these coming days of unusual quiet, unusual simplicity. And for those with children at home where it's not so quiet and not so simple, there may still be new insights to discover, creativity to explore, and relationships to be intensified. Our parsha provides one more antidote I must lift up, and that is the half shekel. Machatzit hashekel. God commands Moses to instruct the people in this mitzvah to donate half a shekel toward the building of the Mishkan. It is written, this shall be given by everyone who passes through the counting from 20 years old and up, a half shekel from the holy shekel coin, the shekel weighing 20 gerah, a half shekel as a gift to the eternal God. What is this half shekel about? Rashi calls up an earlier midrash and explains that God says, give like this. This is how we give. By half. Because one half invites the other half. One half is fully aware that there is another half to make a whole. This is the way we're going to have to reach out for one another intensively over the coming weeks, from a distance and safely, but by half, inviting the other half to make us whole. Let me conclude with one story, not from our parsha, but from the great collection of Jewish folklore. The wisest of kings, King Solomon, challenged one of his advisors by instructing him to search for a ring that could turn a happy person sad and a sad person happy. A secure person anxious, and an anxious person secure. Can you think what you might do if you were the advisor? Well, this one set out and he traveled far across the land of Israel, but to no avail. Finally, he returned to Jerusalem feeling demoralized, empty-handed. He found himself in the marketplace, and among the hustle and bustle, he noticed a man selling some old pieces of jewelry spread out over a threadbare rug. Desperate, the advisor told the merchant what he was seeking, a ring that can make a happy person sad, a sad person happy, a confident person feel anxious, and an anxious person feel confident. The merchant smiled and handed him a ring, which carried the inscription, just 3 words, Gam ze ya'avor. This too shall pass. A slow smile came to the advisor's face, and he purchased the ring at once. He thanked the merchant, returned to the palace to present the ring to King Solomon himself. He looked at the ring, he nodded with approval and with humility. And according to legend, King Solomon wore that ring every day of his life, and it helped him to rule wisely. Some say it was the secret of his wisdom. Some say that ring, that understanding, that truth, that message inscribed on that ring, Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass, is one of the secrets of life itself. I offer this well-known legend today not as a Hallmark greeting to make everything simple and easy, because it's not. I don't offer it as a hashtag. I offer it as a truth, because it is a matter of fact. There's so much we don't know, but one thing we do know is Gam ze ya'avor. This too shall pass. Things change, and then they change again. We change, and then we change again. So, good people, it is now time to show our resilience and our capacity for change and adaptation. Just like an intricate beehive or a proud pack of wolves or the graceful flock of Canada geese that are returning northward as we speak, or even like our ancestors, the ancient Israelites in the wilderness, we know how to survive together, and we will find our way together. Can you hear us?